Welcome back to Base Sunday. Now, we all know there are all kinds of fathers, the good, the bad, but how can you really understand your daughter when you as a father have never been a girl? So our next guest decided to try by interviewing 50 different women, and he put them into one collection. It's called In Search of Fatherhood. Please welcome author Kevin Renner. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, you have been in marketing, and you continue to be, but you said you had a wake-up call. What was that call?
Yes. Well, at 52, I had the realization that I was so spun up in my career and so consumed by it that I really wasn't being the kind of father that I'd hoped I would be. And I looked around and thought, you know, my daughters aren't going to be with me at home that much longer. What do I have left to teach them, and what kind of father can I be in the years that remain? So that was really the motivation I had for going out and having these conversations.
But it was almost about not just what you were doing with your daughters, but what you felt underneath that you felt was affecting them, right? You were unhappy, and you felt like that was affecting them as well.
Yes, yeah. So I was, you know, in a lot of ways, a very typical American corporate guy story. Again, it was really wrapped up in my career, driven, type A personality. And I just felt there was something really lacking in my relationship with them. And I thought, you know, that's sad. And that in my work, I was really unhappy with the nature of the work I was doing, the organization I worked for. And so over the course of the next year, I left that company, started my own, and started to work on this book.
So in this book, you talked to 50 different women, and you talked to a range of women, from some who have great dads to others who had really horrific, I think you said heroes to horrific.
Yes,
something
yes.
That was kind of how you described it, right?
Yeah.
So explain to me this process. How did you choose these women, and what were you hoping to learn through them and for you?
Yeah, well, so in terms of how I chose them, I decided that to learn about this universal father-daughter relationship, I wanted to talk to women broadly. So they spanned 7 decades in terms of their ages, 20s to 80s, and I wanted to talk with women from around the world. So they represent 15 or 20 different countries. And so that was the process. I went out and started recruiting and asking for introductions to women. And I wanted to speak also to women very broadly. So some were highly successful by conventional definitions. Others were very marginalized. I talked to women who were homeless, women who had been suicidal. I called the county jail. I went to a women's shelter. So I really tried to get as much breadth in that sample of 50 women as I possibly could.
But the theme that really goes through the entire, through all the accounts, is that all their fathers, whether it was good, whether it was bad, had a huge impact on kind of where their lives went, right?
Yes, yeah. And I don't think dads typically recognize the depth of the impact they have on their daughters while they're young, and then the trajectory that sets them off over the course of their lives. It's profound.
Okay, you know, let's talk about some of the people who are in this book. I mean, just looking through it, I think there was a cute story. A woman named Lucille says one of her earliest memories of her dad is sitting inside the tuba and him blowing the tuba, and it blew up her skirt, and, you know, how much fun they would have together.
Yes.
And then, you know, you go to other ones where they say their father was kind of absent. So tell me some of your favorites, and which ones really affected you the most.
Sure. The long straw stories affected me a great deal because I learned so much that I wasn't aware of.
And when you say long, I don't mean to interrupt you, but when you say long straw, those are the good dads that we're talking about.
Yes, the women who drew the long straw on their dads. So, for example, Lucille was a great story. She's in her 80s, grew up during the Depression, and her dad was so attentive to her. Those stories like taking her to every parade in town during the Depression, putting her when she was 3 and 4 and 5 in his tuba and blowing and that. The stories, I think the most profound stories in terms of the emotional impact on me were the stories of abandonment and abuse. And for example, a woman who I call in the book Courtney, who was abused by her father and then pulled his German Luger on him when she was 12 years old. It was just a tragic story. And then another woman, I actually tracked down my 6th grade girlfriend in adulthood, in our 50s, and didn't know anything about her story, but I heard this story, again, of abuse and how it played out over the course of her lifetime. As her first pregnancy was at 16, she went to work as a stripper right out of high school. She attempted suicide 3 times in adulthood, went through 5 marriages. So the stories are so broad in terms of the, the echo of the father within these women that plays out over their lifetime.
But why put this collection together? What are you hoping that people learn from these women?
Well, my hope is that I can influence fatherhood, truly, and then also give women perspective and validation on their own experience. But fathers, again, we don't have really the first clue about what it means to be a daughter in a relationship with a father. And so what I wanted to do was bring through a storytelling mode examples that fathers could read and really get some deep emotional insight into the lasting impact that fathers have upon daughters as they become women over their lifetimes.
Okay, very interesting stuff and some amazing stories in this. We want to say thank you to Kevin Renner for coming in today. And you can buy his book if you want to check it out. It's called In Search of Fatherhood. You can get it at your local bookstore or you can get it online. And if you want more information, just log on to kevinrenner.com. We're going to be back with much more here on Bay Sunday.